Hi friends, today I'm going to show you how I cut out this practice butterfly and part of a practice scroll saw sheet. As usual, this video will not be slowed down or sped up. There are so many different practice scroll saw sheets you can do, but this one is my favorite. The book this came out of is by John Nelson, and he has so many beautiful patterns you can use. At the end of this video, I will show you the book and a few more of the patterns. But let's talk about safety. Make sure you have a mask. This is the one that I usually use, and I've had it for quite some time now. The dust you produce when you're scroll sawing is toxic to you, whether it's a toxic wood or either just having dust on your lungs. It's not a good thing, okay? So what I'm showing you here is a pinned blade. This is what I started with when I first started 20 years ago. I didn't know anything about a pinless blade, as a lot of you probably don't. The more teeth you have on a blade, the smoother your cut will be. I do not use pinned blades. I only use pinless. I just wanted to show you guys the difference. I buy my blades from the wooden teddy bear, and I always get Flying Dutchman. Here we go. I hear everybody talking about get Pegasus, get Flying Dutchman, get this, get that. Get the blade that works for you, okay? What I'm showing is the information on each of the blade packages, the teeth per inch. Next, we're going to talk about our table. This is a DeWalt 788, and I wax my table. Oh, I think I jumped ahead too fast. First, let me tell you about my saw. I'll tell you what that is in a little bit too. So this is a DeWalt 788, and I love it because everything I need is right here up front. Everything. I don't have to reach to the back of my saw to get anything. Everything is situated right where it needs to be, and I do not need an attachment to use it. I recommend getting a saw that does not need an attachment. It makes it so frustrating for a beginner. Okay, I'm just readjusting, and now we're going to talk about that little wooden knob right there. Well, the knob on my saw, after trying to tighten and untighten your blade, it hurts your hand after a while. So I made this. I just took the knob off, I traced it, cut it out, and I use it to release or to tighten my blade. It stops you from having calluses right there. Let's get back to waxing my table. The 788 has a cast iron table, so when you're going to use wax on this table, what you need to do first is lightly sand. I'm not pushing hard or anything. I'm lightly sanding it. Those of you who have a DeWalt 788 know that when you first get the saw, there are little lines on the table. As you can see, my lines are gone from years of lightly sanding, wiping it off with a nice clean rag, and then I use wax paper. You do not have to buy paste wax or anything like that. Matter of fact, I get my wax paper from the Dollar Tree. Usually the Dollar Tree, or if my husband happens to get some for cooking, I steal his and use it. Any kind will do. So I'm going to tear a piece off, and then I fold it, and I just rub my table down. Now before you do this, just so you will see why I do what I do, go ahead and try moving a piece of wood across your table, and then do this process and move that same piece of wood across the table. I like to do really so silky smooth, and so this works for me easily. Now there's some people that don't have a cast iron table. You can still do this if you want to. It's not a must, but I see where it works, so I will continue to do it. Again, I am not an expert in any way. I am just giving you the information that I have that I've learned along the way. So don't come for me. I love feeling it after it's been waxed. It feels so good. Okay, let's get back to scrolling. Now I'm using 1/4" MDF, and I've already cut it to the dimensions that I need to do the practice sheet. But I want you to see how I do things from beginning to end. Again, as I do on many of my videos, I put blue painter's tape onto my wood or whatever I'm going to be cutting. So as you can see, I tear my tape from one side to the other, whether it's from top to bottom or bottom to top. I tear it like that and it comes off perfectly each time. Make sure that you rub your tape down very well. Right now my camera is kind of in the way, as you can see the shadow on my left hand. But you want to make sure that you rub your tape down very well. This helps when you're cutting to make sure that you do not have your pattern or anything else flopping up and down while you're trying to cut it. Now it's time to put my pattern onto the 1/4" MDF. I'm going to spray the back of my pattern and then I'm going to put it on there. But what I use is this. I like to use the 3M. I get this at Home Depot. I've tried other spray glues, but this one seems to be the best. So I've already sprayed my pattern, and now I'm going to attach it to the tape that I've put onto the 1/4" MDF that we're going to be cutting. Once you've put your pattern on, you need to make sure that you rub it really well. And then I'm going to take some packaging tape and I'm going to put it around the edges. Again, I don't want anything flopping up and down while I'm trying to cut. And this just helps with that. While I'm doing this, I want to tell you I forgot to explain why I sand and wax my table. Sometimes you get residue from the tape or from the spray glue you're using, or even the stick glue. You get residue on your table, and that is why I sand it, to make sure I have a nice smooth table to work with. You'll see. Here I'll be using a number 5 scroll reverse blade. I made sure my teeth are all facing down except for the reverse part on the bottom. There's a really short part that is facing back up, and that makes sure that I get smooth cuts. When I'm almost done cutting this, I'll show you the back, and you'll see I barely have to sand anything. Like really, I don't even think I use sandpaper because it is MDF. Usually I take a piece of wood and I just scrape it on there and it comes right on off. You'll see in a little bit. While I'm adjusting my camera, I want to hit on something a little. Not everyone scrolls by following the line, and that is totally fine. But if you want to do intricate designs, jewelry boxes, or things that need to make sure they fit in a certain place, you need to learn to follow lines. If you're not planning on doing anything like that, go right ahead, do whatever you want. I am not going to finish this line at all. I just want you guys to see my hand movements when I'm doing this. I'm actually going to go ahead and back out and go to the next line. So when you're trying to scroll, it's all about pivoting, okay? Sometimes your right hand will move your wood and sometimes your left hand will move your wood. But whichever hand is moving the wood, the opposite hand needs to be holding down the wood. It's a relationship, okay? One drives and the other one holds it down. The other one drives and the other hand holds it down. So it's all about pivoting. I will not be finishing this line either, but every once in a while practice backing out and make sure you do not cut anything on your way out. This helps with control of your saw as well. I really wanted to make sure we got to this next part. You see that dot right there? We're going to do something I call spinny doos. Yep, I'm making it up. I call it a spinny do. So we're going to go into that first line and we're going to spin in a circle. I'm going to do a couple of these and then I'm going to explain to you exactly what I'm doing. By the way, these are very important to learn how to do if you want to make sure that you have sharp edges where you have a V or just where you need a sharp edge at. So just watch for a little while and then I'll explain exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so these little spinny doos are very important. So I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing. You guys can go ahead and finish doing the rest of them because it's very good practice. When they have little spinny doos and there's no arrow, you decide which way you go. So we're going to go into one of the dots right now. And all I'm going to do is turn it and I'm going to come back out. Okay? But this next one is where I'm going to go ahead and finally tell you. I know you hate when people do that, but here we go. So I'm going to go up into the dot. I'm going to turn it halfway while the saw is on. And then I'm going to pull the wood towards me because the back of the blade does not have teeth. I'm pulling it towards me. Okay? Watch. I just put my finger on there. There is no teeth on the back of the blade. So again, you're going to make sure you go in, turn it halfway while the saw is on, and then you pull it towards you, and that'll help you go ahead and spin it. Again, keep doing the rest of them, and you decide which way you want to go, left or right. All right, finally, the butterfly. So I've gone ahead and put the blue painter's tape on because I didn't think you guys wanted to watch that again. And now I'm putting some clear packaging tape on. I do this with everything. Again, I do not want things flopping up and down once I am in the groove of cutting. So I didn't want to take packaging tape and put it all over my butterfly. Instead, I just want to do my edges. So I put my tape in so that my hand touches the sticky, pull it out, tear it off, and voila. Well, I'm not going to do the other side with you guys watching because I don't want to bore you to death. Now it's time to drill the holes. There are little points where you're supposed to drill your hole, and I made sure there's a piece of cardboard beneath it so that I don't drill into my table. Remember, just make sure your drill bit is bigger than the blade that you'd like to get through the hole. On this pattern, there are little holes that tells me where to drill, but usually there will not be holes to tell you where to drill. As you can see, I'm drilling where there are points. I'm going to make sure that I put a hole on the outside so that I can cut my outside without breaking the case that it's in. I like to keep it in the case until it's completely cut. You'll see what I mean in a sec. Here I am dusting off the shavings from drilling, and you want to make sure that your table is completely cleaned off. You want your project to be flat to the table. So look at the back of this. That means it will not be flat. So what I'm going to do is I took a piece of wood I just found laying around. It's a random piece of wood. And I'm just going to scratch the back. Because this is MDF, it's going to smooth everything out. It's going to knock off those edges. Again, dust that table off really well. Now I'm going to make sure that my blade is tight enough. And I'm going to turn my pattern toward the teeth of the blade, and I am cutting. So if you could see this a little bit closer, the line extends into the butterfly. So I'm going in and I'm going to do, watch, the little spinny do. Yep, right there. I'm doing a spinny do. I'm going to back in, pull it against me, and then I'm going to go ahead and start to cut again. We're going to do it one more time. I'm going to go into the line, back up, do a spinny do, then I'm going to back in and start to cut. As you're getting closer to the end, to the point, you want to slow down a little. Now right here, again, instead of doing the spinny do, people usually want you to eat away right there and then go ahead around. I say don't do that. Let's just learn how to do it like this. You go into your corner, you back it up, do a little spinny do, back in, and proceed. Not that it's right or wrong, but when you're doing a really intricate project, you don't have time to sit and eat things away. And then you usually leave something there that's called a bee stain. If you can see where the blade was eating away at the wood. Here we go. Again, I do this on really sharp corners that are more like V's instead of U's. If you want it really, really sharp, you do this. If you want a U, you just go ahead and turn it. Now let's take a look at it. You see it's sharp where it should be sharp. That is what you want. So I'm going to flip it over because that's where you can really see what a person was doing. Again, I started this around 20 years ago, and back then there were a lot of old school scroll sawers, and they did a lot of fretwork, and that's what made me fall in love with scrolling, was seeing all the beautiful fretwork. I would love to do a fretwork clock, but I'm just not into putting things together. So we're going to do this. We're going to start right here at the point, and we're going to go around. As I'm coming around, I noticed my line extended into the butterfly, so I did a spinny do and I backed in instead of just turning it. There's a difference between a U and a V for a reason. So when I see a U, I do a U. When I see a V, I do a V. If it's sharp, I make it sharp. If it's, you know, either or, I then make a decision on what I'd like to do. So that must have been sharp. So I did another spinny do, and I'm coming out along my line to finish up this part of the butterfly. Okay, well, let's take a look and see what it looks like. You notice there's been no sanding so far? So when you're scrolling, make sure you're not pushing too hard, and just make sure that you have steady pressure, and just take your time. I am cutting into the corner, and I'm going to back out of that corner, turn around, back in, and continue to cut the direction that I came, because I want to make sure, again, that you can't tell where I started or where I stopped. Also, whenever I'm stopping, about to stop or anything, I make sure that I slow down because I want a nice smooth ending. If you hear your saw make noises like dook, you were pushing way too hard. Sorry about the sound effects. I don't know how else to explain it. But now I'm going to go ahead. I'm coming down, and I've slowed down my pushing. Not my saw, but slowed down my pushing so that I can get a nice smooth cut right back into that V that I started in. You guys, if you're just starting, please do not give up. It is just so joyful once you get the hang of this. I've done so many different crafts in my lifetime, but this one I will never stop doing. From time to time, I put all the other crafts away and I start something else. Everything includes scrolling. Everything that I do includes scrolling. I absolutely love it. Now, don't forget, at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the book that this pattern came out of. There are quite a few patterns in this book for practice, and they even tell you how to bevel some of your work when you get into stuff like that. Again, I told you this is a must-have book. I think it's one of the must-have books. So there I go. I just took a piece that came out of this butterfly and I'm just scraping the back. But basically I still haven't sanded anything. Just make sure you take your time when you're cutting and you will get very, very good results. So I'm going to take a minute and let you guys look at everything. And I am not going to finish the other side. Instead, I'm going to show you how to do the outside. Okay. So usually when I do this pattern with someone, I do the left side with them, and then I have them do the right side by themselves. But I always scroll out the outside so that they can see what they're supposed to be doing. So again, I'm coming around the edge, and in the center of the butterfly, it to me looks like a U. So we will not be doing any spinny doos. We are just going to scroll on. Yep. So here's a little of my sign language. That was either a U or a V. Right here I had to make the decision that that was a U. So that's why I'm just going to go ahead and curve it out and do the same to the other side. And we're going to do a spinny do. That is a sharp edge and we want to keep it sharp. Now, on this side, I'm going to do a little less spinny doos. But as you can see, everything I do is controlled. Okay? Don't worry about how fast the saw is going. Right there, I couldn't tell if it was a V or a U. I know it's supposed to be a V, but I'm going to make sure that I turn it with control and keep on scrolling. Now when I come around the top, my pattern is way over my board. So I'm going to make sure that I keep control of my blade and keep it as smooth as possible. That way when it's done, you can't tell that the pattern was over my board. Now the antennas of the butterfly are what people usually chop off. Again, you have a line there. You can decide to go on the line or outside the line. For the antenna, I suggest you go outside the line just a little bit. Okay, and when I say outside, you're still touching the line, but you're on the outside of it. Everything we've done so far is another reason I suggest you take the there's usually like a little foot, a hold down foot on your saw. I suggest you learn how to hold your own wood down. That way you can get as close as you need to. It's not obstructing your view or your hand movements. Um, Whenever you feel comfortable, I say take that off. Now remember on the other side, I did not do the spinny do, but over here I'm going to. Just a reminder of doing spinny do's. Either or, a U or a V. This one is going to be a V. I'm going to carefully dip in right here and then go around and get ready to complete the outside of the butterfly. And again, I slow down a little when I get to the end, and we're done. If any of you do this pattern, I would love to see it. I would love to see the back and the front of this pattern if you've done it, or if you need help with it. You can actually message me on my Instagram. I am Toya in California. There I can answer questions. I forgot to show you guys my foot pedal. That's a must-have as well. It stops you from having to remove your hand from your saw. So I showed you the thin one that I use, and this chunky one came from Harbor Freight. I like the thin one better. I've